Welcome to the Walk Around Podcast, where our goal is to share with you the insights, the skills, the processes, and the leaders that are influencing the retail automotive landscape today. As always, I'm one of your hosts, Nick Funch, and I'm super excited about our two guests today. We get a little special, we got 2 for 1, I feel like. We have Matt Ellmer, who's the CEO of Priority Automotive, and Adam Robinson, who's the co-founder and CEO of Hireology. So for those of you that may not know, Priority Automotive is a 20-store group in the Washington, D.C. and Virginia area. Matt has a degree in economics from the University of Colorado and has held a variety of positions with Priority before being named COO in 2019. We were speaking before we went live, and he said point blank, he's a car salesman, he's a sales agent, and he loves it. So excited to have Matt's perspective on the call. And then Adam is, again, the co-founder and CEO of Hireology, where he's on a mission to help businesses succeed by building exceptional teams and workplace culture. He's the author of The Best Team Wins, Build Your Business Through Predictive Hiring, and a columnist for Inc. magazine. Matt, Adam, welcome to the Walk Around Podcast.
Thanks, Nick.
Very much.
So really excited to have kind of a dealer's perspective, but then also a perspective from a solutions provider that's trying to solve some of our challenges within the industry. I think maybe, Matt, I would start with you and kind of just say, hey, from when you think about your people, and Priority, I believe has 2,100 teammates, 2,100 associates across the group. When you think about it, what are some of the challenges that you have looking at kind of that, managing that team and kind of getting them all pointed in the right direction?
Well, I can say that there are specific positions that I think our individual departments have trouble. We have some trouble with more turnover than we would like. So okay. It seemed that we would have trouble maintaining the amount of personnel that we would need in specific positions. So salespeople would be an example of one, automotive technicians. And so I think we found ourselves in a cycle of constantly having to stay on some sort of platform for, trying to find these people, and then at the same time not being able to retain them when we got them. So we identified this as one of our main opportunities to capitalize on the investment that we've already been putting forth with Indeed and all these other third-party providers. And 2, make better use of, these human beings when we actually got hold of them with training and so forth. So I would say personnel and talent acquisition is one of the biggest challenges in the automotive industry.
And certainly, I think, Adam, your business, Hireology, is kind of wraps around people. And I guess maybe from a high level, before we get deeper, from your perspective, how is Hireology trying to help Matt and Priority solve these problems, but more importantly, kind of help help the industry as a whole?
Yeah, our mission is to empower leaders in this industry to be successful. And we think we best do that by helping them build the best team that they could build. I mean, recruiting is a sales and marketing process. At its core, recruiting is selling. And if you look at the way that you run your sales process at your dealership, your funnel, right? The consumer comes in increasingly through an internet lead. There's some amount of time, most dealers, anywhere from 5 seconds to an hour, maybe, to get back to that lead. They've got a defined process. They run them through that funnel. They get that booked appointment. They come into the store to see the vehicle. They're shrinking down the transaction times. The delivery has been improved. I mean, it's all about building your business process around what the consumer wants and not the way that dealers do business, right? We've changed that. But recruiting in our industry, it's a sales and marketing process, but we're still largely as an industry built around the way we've always done it. And so that applicant comes in through the internet, the dealer waits on average in our industry. We work with 1 in 4 new car franchise dealers in the U.S. We've got some great data on this. On average, 8 days to get back to an applicant.
Wow.
Right? How many cars would you sell if you waited 8 days to call that lead back? Right? The correct answer is 0. You'd sell 0 vehicles,
Okay.
and you would know exactly why you sold 0 vehicles. Right? So 8 days to get back to an applicant, and then a resume maybe gets emailed off internally, and maybe the manager calls or they don't. And when that applicant comes in for their interview, maybe they're expected, and then the follow up. The onboarding, it's just not traditionally managed very well. So Hireology provides dealers the tool set and the philosophy they need to treat recruitment as a core and critical part of their business, just like any other core and critical business process. That's what we do. We do that with software, not with service. So we're not a recruiting firm. We give you the tools to do this better yourself.
And so, full disclosure, Matt and Priority are customers of Hireology. And so, I guess I'm interested. Matt, you were speaking earlier prior to us recording around how you kind of view that cycle as a CRM for your own internal associates. And it's interesting to hear Adam kind of thread that same kind of line around, do you know what that recruiting funnel is, like you know what your sales funnel is on the sales floor. So I guess I'm curious, when you think about how the efficiencies you've gained from a organization when it comes to the life cycle of recruiting and then even potentially post recruitment, what are your thoughts in general on that?
Well, I would like to, I'll kind of go right along the path that Adam was taking us down. Is Hireology provides I think they've won an award, and they were called a talent management platform. And that's really what it is. It's a way that as a manager, as a supervisor in a car dealership, you can make your own ads, you can create them, you can send them out, and they handle all of those dealings with the third parties, whether it's Indeed or whoever else. So we were all kind of doing that individually, piecemeal, and this all goes, seamlessly out to all those things. But you can do that in the course of your normal day. But I think as importantly, when someone is buying a car these days, you want to meet the customer where they are. So if they've already done 80% of their shopping online, you don't want to have them have to do all those things again when they come into your dealership. And the same thing is true for people out there in the job market. So if we're taking 8 days to get back to somebody who's looking for a job, that's not going to work. So Hireology provides all of these tools that are quick and easy to use for our supervisors, for our managers. For example, we can receive an application and we can immediately text that potential teammate, and we can communicate with them very easily. The entire onboarding process with paperwork and so forth can be done digitally right from a smartphone. So it's very similar to the way that we look at how do we progress our business with dealings with our customers, right? Can I text a customer a copy of their repair order? Yes or no? The answer should be yes. I mean, that's what we want to do. So if we're not doing that, then we're missing the boat. And the same thing is true for trying to hire people. The best people are the people are the only determining factor in a business, in my opinion. So that's why this became such an important thing. I was introduced to Hireology through Toyota. I was lucky enough to go, and there was a meeting, and they had brought in Hireology to go over some information with us and show us about their program, and it's really been a great addition to our tool belt, so to speak. So
I'm guessing, and Matt, I don't want to assume anything, but when you look at the scale to run a 20 store group, that experience was probably different across the different brands and different just physical locations. And I'm certain that standardization improves kind of the experience for the candidate as well. Is that a fair statement?
Absolutely. And it's it's because each manager, the car business is unique in that each department is almost like a completely separate business. So a sales department really is operating in a completely different way than a parts department, for example.
Yeah.
But both departments will need to acquire personnel and talent. And this is a way that, streamlined for any supervisor to use it wherever you're located. So even on your day off, you can receive things on your phone, and it really connects the people that really need to be involved in the hiring with the people that are trying to apply for that job. So it's been great.
Yeah. And so I guess, Adam, as I think about kind of the year behind us, certainly we've seen disruption, unlike anything probably we've seen in a long time. How have you seen kind of the technology help dealers through kind of this disruption? Or I guess, have you seen that? And if so, what have you seen?
Yeah, I mean, here I am, software company CEO, telling you that, man, dealers bought plenty of software.
Right.
The last thing most dealers want is another tool, right? Like, it's just, we got enough stuff. The issue is we haven't implemented that. Software on its own solves no problem.
Yeah.
Right? You have to have the intention and be willing to change and hold people accountable to that change. That's where you start to get those efficiencies. And I've been on a little bit of a soapbox the last couple of years at the convention and in 20 groups when I have the opportunity to talk in different OEM meetings, to say, I think we carry too many heads for the number of cars we sell on a per dealership basis. I've been saying that for a number of years. And what I had been encouraging dealers to think about is the way that they structure the roles, particularly the variable roles in their organization, so that the front line does more. And you see this, I mean, one price dealers really led the way on this, right? Where you've got, you've got the 25-year-old, 2 years out of college, has gone through a sales training program. They can give you a quote on your trade. They can give you a quote on finance. They can do it all without having to transition you. That's the way that, and it's worked well for that business model. It's not as prevalent in traditional negotiation dealerships. But what COVID did was force dealers to do more with fewer people. And what we've seen over the summer is two things. Number one, dealers have been forced to adopt the technology they bought.
Yeah.
It would go for our stuff. It would go for all the digital retailing solutions we all bought and thought it was great 3 years ago, and it's still sitting there. We had to do it.
Right.
That's the only way we could transact business, right? So we flattened the adoption curve by about 5 years. And what we found out is that we can sell more cars with fewer people. And so, coming off the best summer most dealers have ever had, the stories, I've got hundreds of these stories from our customers who will say, instead of having 10 to 11 car salespeople making $500, $300 a vehicle, I've got 18 car salespeople making $700, $800 a vehicle. I'm making more money and everybody's happier. And so, the answer to your question is the tools are being adopted, and it's resulted in what I sincerely hope, is a permanent headcount efficiency gain, so that we don't have to overstaff because we're worried about not being able to cover the floor on a weekend. We've had to shift that model, and I hope it is here to stay, because I'm pretty sure dealers like the profits they're seeing right now.
Do you think so? So it's interesting, and I'm thinking about this now. You just talked about overstaffing because of the sales opportunities and not wanting to miss. But could it be true too that there's some fear of turnover, and that you want kind of that extra person, because if one person kind of falls off the bandwagon, you always kind of would rather have a couple extra than not enough. I mean, is that fair? Am I kind of looking at that
exactly,
as a possible driver?
Nick, that's exactly what I'm saying. And I know Matt will have lots of experience to share on this. But yeah, the staffing model has been, I better keep this wheel running. Just keep turning that hamster wheel, because I'm going to lose 3 every week. And I don't want to be understaffed going into the spring or summer. And so let's just keep let's hire 10 and hope 3 stick. Hire 10, hope 3 stick. And we just, man, that's expensive. It's about $16,000 per head turned over in the first 90 days of employment. And we lose 35% of our hires within the first 90 days, 35% in the first 90 days. That is an expensive business model. It's just expensive. And I've seen dealers' priorities, a great example of committing to change, and they see benefit and they commit to changing that model. And that, and it's the same way we've changed to focus on the consumer at the center of our process. You put that job seeker at the center, that new hire at the center of your process. Don't make them run through your hoops. You run through their hoops. You improve that experience and you manage the gates between the steps. It will get better. Your retention will go up. Your costs will go down. Your time to hire will go down. You start saving real dollars. It makes a big difference.
Matt, have you seen that translate over the last 14 months, kind of as you've gone from engaging Hireology into kind of the full relationship?
100%. And back to something that Adam said, it's kind of any tool that you decide to bring on into the dealership, it's the level of engagement from the staff is really going to determine the success rate. So with the tool, in this case, Hireology, one of the things that it has allowed us to do is really gauge who's doing a good job. Who's retaining their people, because you can see that very easily. Yeah. Where before I'd have to make a phone call to payroll, make a phone call to HR, I have to go through kind of all these gyrations of, how many people do we hire? How many people do we let go? So there's an accountability piece there. But for the means of coaching and seeing where the process is broken and therefore how can we fix it? So starting with Hireology in September of 2019, it was a completely different time than it is now, obviously. Unemployment was so low. Most of the people that were applying for jobs through the Indeeds and so forth, they're not going there looking for a sales position in automotive. They're going there for a job, period.
Right. Yeah.
They would be applying to maybe a restaurant as well and many other things. So when we reach out, if we're late, then we're missing the boat, as we discussed earlier. But also, as far as the competition of compensation, the compensation rates started to climb.
Yeah.
And we had fast food restaurants in our areas at advertising outside their windows $15 an hour.
Yeah.
Pretty strong rate. So if you're out there looking for an entry-level position in a car dealership, these are the things that we were battling when everyone is fighting for that applicant. So then obviously COVID-19 hits, things, changed so quickly, and there was a ton of gyrations, dealers letting people go, a lot of businesses letting people go, then trying to bring them back on, and then building back up. And I think what Adam said is absolutely right. If you had to let some staff go, then you'd better utilize what you have now better. And I think we all did, whether it be technology, whether it be getting more out of each and every one of us. And then only adding back as really necessary. And inventories are growing, and a lot of the success dealers had was just simply supply and demand. It was demand kind of stayed the same, and the supply was way down. So prices were up. They
go up.
They're definitely up. Wholesale market, used car market.
It's crazy.
So so we've seen kind of unusually in 14 months, we've almost seen, I think, the two extremes, but both of which highlight why paying attention to that applicant makes so much sense for that business that needs them. Connecting directly with them is important.
Yeah. And, Adam, I was reflecting on the kind of some of the numbers, and all of a sudden you start to do some math on, every applicant that turns over within 90 days is $16,000 expense. I think I had that right.
Correct.
And I'm racking my brain right this second, but I read something recently where it essentially said 90 days is such an important gate, because if you can keep them 90 days, your likelihood of keeping them a year, that ratio goes way up. And then your likelihood of keeping them 3 years, if you can get them to the year mark, goes way up. And so like it's a double-edged sword both ways, right? There's that initial expense, and you may have some information about this, but then there's that kind of retention, a little long term that helps everything. It helps kind of the customer experience when they're on the showroom floor, training expenses, all of those things. And so I think it's expensive now, but there's also that long-term effect too, you know?
Yeah. And I just, I love to think about the business model of this industry. You look at these gates you mentioned, the data tells us where we need to spend our time, right? So the area of greatest exposure, P&L exposure, is that first 90 days. I'm probably paying a draw. I'm probably not getting a lot of units sold. I've just bought them all the software and all the logins and done all the training, right? I'm max outlay first 90 days and I lose a third of them, all right? So then I take the state unemployment insurance hit, and I have the termination lawsuit potential and all that risk I've got to mitigate, and it increases all my cost, right? So that's super expensive. So step one is first 90 days, right? If you hire them right, they're more likely to make it through 90. If they make it through 90, 12 months is the next magic gate. And we turn 70%, talking about the industry, 70% of our salespeople over in the first 12 months and 92% of our female employees in the first 12 months. And right. So that's the second gate. Now I've got someone who's productive, but they decide they don't like it here. That's expensive. And then that the third gate that's meaningful is the 3-year mark. And if we make 3 years, 3/4 of people who will make it 3 years will consider this their career. They stay forever, right? So and it makes sense. They're making money. They're successful. They'll stay. They're an automotive retail professional at that point, and they're a lifer, right? Like all of us. And so here's how that circle ties together. The single most influential factor in whether or not somebody makes it to 3 years is the experience they have on their very first day in your dealership as an employee. So if you
say that again, Adam. I just want to make sure I heard
the most influential thing you can do to get someone to the 3-year mark, as reported by the employees in our surveys, is make day one great.
Wow.
So dealerships that have a structured onboarding program, right, that is built around their success, get them wheels up, moving vehicles or selling service, writing ROs, fixing, turning wrenches, doing all that. Getting them through to productive starts with the very first day. And companies with a structured onboarding program, 70%, that employee is 70% more likely to get to 3 years. And the most important part of that onboarding is day one, because day one is when you either confirm the suspicions or exceed expectations. So if I've just come through an amazing recruiting experience and I'm so excited to work for ABC Motors, and on day one, I walk into the store, who are you again? Oh, you're here to see Adam? He's not here yet. He usually gets here about 11 o'clock on Monday.
That doesn't happen in a company. Come on.
Let's get you in the conference room here. Fill out this stack of tax forms, and here's a stack of Grant Cardone tapes I want you to watch. And as soon as Adam gets here, he'll talk to you. And then Adam comes in, and it's 5:30, and we're busy. And so you know what? You can either hang around till 9, or we'll get you in the morning. And then 2 weeks, you go to the window, and who are you? I don't have you. I didn't know you were supposed to get a paycheck today. How does that feel? That does not feel good, because your first day was tough. Contrast that with a great day one, which is not expensive or difficult to do. We're so glad you're here. Welcome. Here's your workspace, your locker, your uniform, your business cards, your phone. Let me take you on a quick tour. Here's our general manager. Nice to meet you. We got a couple members of the team going to take you down the street to lunch. We're going to show you the ropes. Send you home with a bottle of your favorite beverage, and tell your significant other that you made the right choice. Right there, that's the contrast. So you can't start with, we're going to retain people for 3 years. Just start with making the first day on the job really special, and go from there.
Well, I was reflecting like, hey, don't, how to eat an elephant one bite at a time. I think that's sage advice. Like, start the first day, Then you can look at 1 year and all that stuff down the road. But Matt, I guess I would ask you, how do you approach kind of that initial 90-day onboarding as an organization, whether it's day one, month one? How do you kind of make sure that you reinforce that a candidate made the right decision?
So that's a great question. And with this relationship that we have started with Hireology, we also obviously have a relationship with JM&A. Mm-hmm. And with both of those relationships, we actually, at the beginning of this year, we have 17 general managers, and we got everyone together, and we actually held a workshop about onboarding and people grow people and these kinds of ideas. And because we had processes for hiring people, but we didn't necessarily have accountability inside stores that was uniform and trained on. So things like that, like where do you park? What do you do? Do you clock in and do you clock out? All these kinds of things. It is the car business, and we are no different. We are trying to get better every single day.
Yeah.
But I think that the car business in general kind of has a lot of what Adam was talking about, where it's show up of, John's not here, go shadow, Julie for a while, and she'll kind of show you around. And you can get lost in the sauce really easy, especially in certain positions.
Yeah. I think one of the things I try to reflect on is just because it's the way you came up doesn't mean it was the right way. And just because it worked for you doesn't mean it was the right way. And I think, when you think about, there's probably a lot of areas in your business or your life where it's like, hey, I'm on this hamster wheel for whatever reason. But if you got put there and that's what you learned, you got to seek some help to kind of get off of it and understand that what made you successful may not be the same kind of ingredients that may make, someone else successful. And so, for me, it's like, hey, there's a bunch of smart people out there. What can I go learn from them? And certainly I've learned some how you approach it, Matt, and Adam today as well. But I guess, I would be curious as we're kind of winding down the conversation, Adam, when if I'm in a store, what data should I be looking at from a kind of a recruiting and onboarding? We talked about, I think, the post data, like 90 days a year, those gates. But from that sales funnel early on, are there a couple KPIs that you would encourage people to focus on?
There are. The far and away, and Matt hit on this, the far and away the most important KPI, the first one I'd want my line managers focused on is their applicant review rate and time. How long does it take you as a manager to look at that application or resume and respond to that lead or applicant? We have a metric we look at called lost applicants. That's an applicant that tried to work for you, but applied and didn't hear anything back in 21 days.
21 days.
21 days, black hole. And in 2019, 2 million people tried to work for a car dealership in the United States and never received a reply for 21 days. We call this 2 million lost applicants.
Wow.
Right? 2 million. So we don't have an applicant problem. What we have is a sales and marketing funnel accountability issue. And so if I'm a GM of a store and I want to improve this process, I'm looking at a report that tells me how long it's taken my manager to respond to that applicant. And really what I want is 72 hours or less. 90% of all hires made in our industry is someone whose resume was responded to within the first 48 hours. That tells you something. The average job seeker, even in today's market, finds a new position. In their mind, they've said, if I get this offer, I'm taking it within 2 weeks. And the average review time is 8 days. This problem is solvable with process and accountability, right? So that's the one I would focus on.
Yeah, it's just having data. I think, Matt, you were speaking earlier around kind of some of this anecdotal, you needed to go to payroll, you need to go to this, and like having it all in one spot where you can, I think it enables anyone to drive or support the processes, but then drive the accountability. But listen, people, it's people in automotive. There's always opportunity for us, as an industry to do better, to be better. But when you can help solve a little bit of that, it makes all of the that ecosystem from the consumers to how the dealership runs go smoother. So Matt, when you think about onboarding in your own dealership and across your group, like how do you kind of approach it and standardize it across all of your stores?
So with the relationship with Hireology and also with JM&A, we actually at the beginning of this year formulated a game plan for ourselves. And what we did was we don't really have a problem in fixed operations.
Okay.
And finding people. It was more in variable operations. So we focused on sales managers, and we elected a sales manager from each store, and we call them a success coach.
Okay.
So, and they're responsible for the onboarding process of all the new hires. And these are mainly salespeople, BDC people, but also lot attendants and all these positions that I myself have hired lot attendants that are now finance managers. I'm very proud.
That's great.
It's I haven't done very much right, but that's one thing that I have.
That's awesome.
So day one, we have a spreadsheet that's a live spreadsheet. We have an internal crew we have people on a training team, and that's part of their responsibility. They help monitor the onboarding process as it goes along, that the success coaches are checking those boxes off. So has the new hire met all of the management staff? They should meet the parts manager day one. They should meet the service manager day one. I would hope that the general manager has already met them and been part of the interview process, but they should meet the team. They need to know things like where to park. Where do you keep your personal belongings? All of these things. And so each store has a selected person that was elected by the general manager.
Yeah.
To take these things on, and then they're checked off. So there's day one things, there's week one things, right? Then and our onboarding process is for a year.
Yeah.
So we're almost done with that because we started it in January.
Yep.
But we have seen tremendous results. We have cut down our turnover rate for salespeople. We've cut it in half.
Wow.
Which is significant for us.
That is significant. And I'm guessing that there's some accountability to that kind of check sheet. Does that live at the general manager level? Does that live up through kind of your operations and human resources staff? Or
so it is a shared file.
Okay.
Access, so all the general managers can see it and all the success coaches can see it. And then we do a monthly review call that I help lead. And it is just that. We don't like to have the good boy and the bad girl and good girl list necessarily.
Correct.
But it'll be a call just like this. And we will highlight stores that have hired 10 salespeople and 9. And what a great job. How many cars have these 9 people sold? And then we'll highlight a store that's hired 20 salespeople and have only kept 3. Right? We'll highlight stores that have completed the onboarding process the right way. And it's just reinforcement throughout time, which a lot of the PDC with JM&A has brought to us is the continued reinforcement.
Yeah.
To train somebody for a day, how much are they going to retain after a day, especially a long day of training? So the continuous reinforcement of the onboarding process in conjunction with all of the things that Hireology provides is really, it's changed this company. And again, I appreciate both of you, JM&A and Hireology.
Well, it's just, I think Adam brought it up earlier that software alone doesn't solve the problem. You've got to have the kind of that process and then the accountability to kind of wrap around it. So I've really enjoyed the conversation today. I know, Matt, thank you for joining us. You run a first-class organization in Priority Automotive. If you want to learn more about Priority Automotive, you can go to priorityauto.com. And Adam, certainly Hireology and the tools you provide dealers to manage that recruiting funnel are certainly impactful. And so you can find Adam on LinkedIn or through Hireology as well. So Matt, Adam, thank you for your time. If you liked this podcast, be sure to hit the like button, share it with your friends, and shoot us a message about other topics we'd love to hear about. So Matt, Adam, thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you, Nick.